Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of
James, I got this, man. I got this. All right? Listen. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Reverse Sweep. It is your boy, Doug Censor Martin, alongside James, Chris, and Pat. How are you guys all doing today?
Good. We missed you, Doug.
Yeah, bro. Honestly,
people.
I'm just glad that you're getting James out of my ear because, Jesus, I've had enough of this guy. It's only been a couple episodes.
Oh man, I love it. We guys, we listen. Doug's back. You can stop commenting. Doug is back. We got Doug for the major episode, and I do have news for everybody. Pat agreed to give away a hand-signed jersey last episode, and the goal was 1,000 subs. Unfortunately, we only hit 300 out of the 1,000 subs. I think 303 was the exact number, but being the kind-hearted human being that he is, Pat has decided to double down. So the goal remains 1,000, but if we're able to get 700 subs, I think 697, Pat is still going to give away the jersey.
That's not a lot at all.
So guys, simple. Doug's back. Pat's still giving away the jersey. Hit the sub button, and let's talk about some Call of Duty. Major 2 was insane. And FaZe took it. Pat, I feel like it's appropriate that you kick it off. I feel like you probably have some things to say. We didn't pick FaZe in our bracket as much as you wanted us to.
I was begging you guys. I was literally begging. I listen. It was clear to me from the start of Major 2 that these guys were going to come in and dominate. They look great online, had a woe or two, but they came here. Their S&D has been flawless. And what do we always say? S&D wins championships. Yeah, man, I wish you guys would have listened to me when we were doing our pick'ems, we were making our bracket. We probably could have gotten close to that perfect bracket, but you guys wanted to think purple the whole time, which I guess foreshadowed a little bit for the rocker. But listen, guys, I'm disappointed in you guys, but I'm not disappointed in FaZe because I knew they were going to be the Major 2 champions.
There was no way we are going to predict this bracket. I think we got a couple teams' placements kind of close. But, dude, I think Saturday chalked everybody's predictions. Hell, the first day of the tournament, our bracket was in shambles.
Yeah, when Rocker beat
pulled
New York?
the upset. Yeah. But the thing is, for me, I did say that was going to be an upset match potentially out of all the other 4 ones that had clear favorites. So, I mean, I saw the Rocker resurgence kind of coming this event. I don't know. I had this feeling with the way they were playing online, and they ended up making it at top 3. They, for their standards, I think, and the way they've been playing lately, I think a top 3 is pretty solid for those guys as well.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly,
the grand finals.
What? Go again.
Oh no, yeah, I was saying, what'd you think of the grand finals, Doug? I was just moving it over onto Doug.
I thought that the grand finals was great. I think I actually it's believe it or not, it's funny. I literally am right next to the FaZe guys in this hotel, and I was eating dinner in like this hotel lobby dinner spot, and I was watching it because I knew we had this podcast, and I had to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And I just watched them win in the restaurant, and as I finished, like 30 minutes later, I'm going up to my room. There's Cellium, there's Slasher, there's Simp. There's Crowder, right? They're all about to get ready to party and celebrate. And Austin, I just saw him in the hallway, gave him a big hug, Slasher. And the first thing he said to me was, Doug, what do I always say to you? S&D wins championships. We didn't drop an S&D the whole event. And I was like, nice, man. Like, what was the best one? He's like, we had a 2-5 comeback. And I was like, oh, that's when it's clicking. He's like, yeah, man, I love it. And I was like, all right, but you got to look forward to the next one, man, because look, it's great you won this one. You celebrated tonight, but you know how it goes, man. You got to look forward to the next one. He's like, oh, dude, I'm already thinking about how we got to get better in hardpoint, how we got to do better in this, and how we got to look in that. So, yeah, I mean, FaZe right now, they're really happy. They're confident. They look great this weekend. aBeZy has been phenomenal, man. Like, the things I've been seeing out of Tyler this year, it's just, I know everyone always gasses Tyler, but I don't ever really talk too highly of him because everyone knows how great he is. But I have to give him some love because the things I'm seeing out of Tyler in this game is a little bit different from what I've seen from him in the past, and he's always been an MVP player. So if he keeps playing like that and their AR duo is working the way they are and they're winning all these S&Ds, like, FaZe is not going to be an easy team to beat moving forward.
Definitely. I think when those guys get the hard point down, like, they're going to be even scarier. Their S&D was basically flawless. Well, I mean, it was flawless at the tournament, but I think they're on like a 17 map win spree, or like they're like 17-1 total in Search and Destroy, which is honestly tippable. I mean, we were gassing up Ultra prior to the event, gassing up their control because they were on a big map win spree. But S&D's different because there's 2 of those a series. It's not like just one, it's just one every other series. They're just consistently always icing up because that is the icy game mode. And you got to tip it, dude. You got to tip it. FaZe finally broke the curse. Everyone thought Zuma was cursed. And we were just sitting there on the flank watch party rooting for FaZe and stuff like that because we wanted to see Ben J. Nassim. So he's actually going to be going bald, which is kind of hilarious.
It saves me $500 as well. Because me and Ben had the $500 or he went bald bet, and now I get to save my $500 and watch him go bald. So I'm ecstatic. I do think it's funny though that it's kind of Slasher last year in Major 2 had that S&D loser bracket run with the Gorillas, and yeah, I think he stays true to S&D does win championships, and the fact they came out here had a dominant S&D performance. Maybe it's just starting like a new little status quo for Austin in Major 2s, but. It was a typical performance for all the guys, and I think the big thing too. I know you mentioned aBeZy, but Simp, like finally we get to see Simp return to MVP form, especially in a grand final, which is where we've been lacking it. But yeah, I'm excited to see this FaZe team continue to roll.
Yeah, I did see a lot of stuff on Twitter though. People like questioning whether Simp should have gotten MVP. Do you think that he was the MVP of this tournament and I guess grand finals? Like, do they give it out tournament wise, or is it based off grand finals?
I think it's usually always on grand finals.
No. It's usually tournament MVP. My thing is,
really?
I think they were all really close in their like performances because if you saw the stats of their team, like they were all playing really well in their respective manner. But I think Simp in that finals just went absolutely ballistic in the search and destroys, which ultimately was the reason why they won. I mean, they literally made up for their 2 hardpoint losses. One of them, which I think they should have won. But they made up for it with literally insanely good S&D play. I think Simp dropped like double digits. Like, was it 14, 7? It was a really high.
14 and 4, I think, is what he went.
Yeah, he was just running at he was just running at the Thieves and just rolling them, dude. Like, I think that's eventually what swayed the MVP because I think you could make arguments for literally like 3 of their team. So.
Yeah, I wish just to like segue it a little bit, I wish that the league would clarify that because I feel both of what you guys just said with the MVP. Like, I don't know if it is a tournament or if it's a finals, but we should be copying these other leagues and these other things. Like, when you have a Super Bowl run, like the Super Bowl's happening in a week from now, and one of these quarterbacks is probably winning the MVP. It's always of the game, like the most important game, right? So if you're in the finals MVP should be the guy who's winning in the finals, making the best plays. Because yeah, it's a team game and you got to get there, but I just think the award should be MVP of the one finals match, not MVP of the whole tournament. I don't know. I just feel like it's a little bit more of a catch if it's like the finals MVP.
I think what you're trying to talk about is like, dude, it reminds me of like in the World Cup, the man of the match. Like every time they would always post those after every single game. I think that's kind of what you're referring to. I wouldn't mind it, honestly. At the end of the day, who the fuck cares? The only thing that matters is the team that won, realistically. But I mean, yeah, with some ups, we also have some downs. I'm going to take your role here, and I'm going to transition us a little bit, James.
Take it away.
We have the unfortunate news of Zinni, Methodz retiring. He actually decided to retire on stage, which I think was incredible. I mean, dude, the sentiment of a player retiring at an event like that it's like, I don't know, it was like a happy moment, but also a sad moment. Because like you just have all these mixed up emotions, right? Especially like people like me. Like I've known the guy for so long. And I've seen him develop as a player. I've seen him develop as a person. I remember Fat Tony, literally little guy. And now he's a handsome young man. He
wasn't a little guy.
Amazing player. Had a great career, and I can't say enough positive things about him. But I think that whole retirement speech and all that stuff, it really hit home for a lot of people. And doing at an event, I think was just like the right thing to do. It's like. You end your career where you started, essentially, and I don't know, man. It really hit home, dude. Like, I don't know. It's hard to talk about.
To me, I think we need to call this out, James. I mean, the last reverse sweep, we called out the CDL and their lack of doing things like this for pro players that do retire that aren't the faces of the league. that everyone deserves their flowers and have moments like this. So I think it was awesome that Zinni was able to get his moment on stage in front of his team's home crowd.
In front of his family.
Up to the
His
CD,
family
his
was there
family as
too.
well. So a shout out to the CDL for improving in that regard. Because I know, we're still waiting on some of the past, so it's nice to see the direction that's headed and letting players like Zinni be able to retire in fashions that he did. I think it's always awesome too when players go out on their own terms, kind of like how Zinni did. Obviously, not the performance that he wanted here at this tournament, but yeah, it's been a long time for, I think we're getting to that point in Call of Duty now, this community, where like a lot of these guys who have been competing for like a decade plus, like we're gonna start to see more and more of this just because life happens, man. You get different interests. I know not everybody continues to have the same passion, but it does suck to see that people that have been around so long are finally done with it. And I don't know who's up next, but Clay's probably seeing that and thinking like when his time's going to be and stuff like that. So it's always a sad day, but I think Zinni's going to do well in content. That's obviously his focus and probably has been on his mind for a while. But it was interesting for Zinni to be the hand of the king and go out like a few weeks after Seth retired. So it was a little suspicious there that he decided to pick so close to Seth's retirement. But
I think it was funny. I think it was funny, Pat, that he said, "Oh, the future is green." And
I noticed that too.
Yeah, he's on the Boston Breach, and obviously those guys' colors are green. But I think we know what green he was talking about.
Yeah, for me, it was like he pulled me to the side a couple of nights ago, and we talked about it one-on-one, and he was giving me the pros and the cons of it all, and why he wants to do what he wants to do, and where his head's at, and where his heart's at, and what he's looking to do. And I just try to give him the best advice to just follow his heart, right? And for him, I'm very happy. Zinni to me he was a guy like when I came back in World War II. That's when I really became close with him because I never really associated with him before then in 2017, but we ended up teaming together under Next Threat, and we both got in the league because of each other. We helped each other a lot. He was a great player. He got in the league. I got in the league. We got on different teams. I was on Cole. He was on Rise. And I had great experiences with him. I loved playing with him. It was always fun. I'm glad that I could represent Boston, and he was here too. And we had some good moments as well, hanging out outside of the game. So his future is going to be bright. His future is going to be great. And I'm happy for him. And you said one thing that I wanted to talk about, Pat, talking about Clay, right? Because he's 30 years old, and this is what everyone's thinking when you say that. 30 years old, and Zinni's 25, 26, whatever. And age really is a number, guys. It really doesn't matter. I'm 28. Look, I'm in Challengers. I might be in Challengers when I'm 30. I'm going to still be playing COD. Look, at the end of the day, if you want to do something, and if it makes sense for you, you got to go out and you got to chase your dream. The whole age thing in Call of Duty, you're going to see this guy Cellium. Look at his Twitter feed right now. He just won the championship. Everything he tweets is robotic. GG's, we lost. GG's, we won. GG's, we lost. GG's, we won. I'll tell you what, I just saw him when he won. That smile he has on his face, that love he has for the game, that passion isn't going to fade. He's going to be playing COD when he's 30. I think that players are looking at other opportunities as they age because they're always trying to find ways to sustain a career in esports. And that's the number one question all of us are looking for. If there was more stability with it, players would not be retiring the same way. But he's in a great spot. I'm very happy for him and his future. And Boston's future is bright as well, right? Obviously, we have a lot of things moving right now. So it's great. And it's a sad night, but it's a happy night at the same time, right? So yeah, I'm actually gonna go see him after this, so I'm like a little emotional about it too.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that I've noticed a couple things that I want to get your guys' take on is I feel like people have been kind of quick to like, yes, the game isn't perfect, but a lot of people are immediately like blaming the game for these players retiring. But I do think like Pat said, and you guys have mentioned that, do you guys think this is also just like we're like clocks are starting to run out a little bit, and no matter what the game is, over the next couple of years, we're going to have these players who have been playing for 8+ years that are going to start taking the next step. Would you guys agree with that, or do you guys do think that the game plays an impact in some of these decisions?
I think the game plays a big impact on it. At the end of the day, if you're still good enough, which, for example, I still think Zinni's a good player. He might not have been what Boston wanted if they were considering changing him out, or he may not always perform the best, but I still think he's a pro league caliber player. But I think what drives people away from actually playing the game is just real life responsibilities, but also the game. Like, if you're not having fun with it, you're just not going to want to play. You're not going to have that same fire. The game definitely has an impact with it. Also, just your situations and stuff like that. If you're not happy with your situation, like let's say your team, and you don't really think you can get anything better, that's going to, give you that sense of fulfillment. There's other avenues of that for tons of players. Like, for example, one of those things that I was always looking into was coaching. One of those things that Zinni's looking into is content. Zuma, content. All those people, like there's just something out there for everybody. Esports is a big game. Like, look at Pat, dude. The guy's basically a game dev. Like,
I do it all, bro. I'm a game designer. I am a podcast co-host too, by the way. I'm all over the place.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's something out there for everybody. I think eventually a lot of our old heads are going to find their niche, whether it's competing for a long time, transitioning to game development, podcast hosting, coaching, or any other avenues of esports. I think a lot of us that came up, within the old days, we've seen how the space has grown. We've seen how the space has regressed. And I think a lot of us just want to see esports and even just Call of Duty as a whole just kind of succeed. Like, we just love, we have the love for the game and the community. So everyone's going to be all right. Everyone will find their way. It is what it is.
Beautiful. We did talk. Sorry, guys. By the way, we're all on hotel Wi-Fi, so if you hear weird little pauses, it's because we're all waiting to see if one of us are gonna chime in, and we don't want to cut each other off. But we did talk about one side of the grand finals, which was FaZe, who ended up taking it. But I feel like it's appropriate that we touch on LAT. Nobody. Well, I'm not going to say nobody. Our bracket definitely did not have LAT making the run that they did. A lot of people did not expect them to show up and be as dominant as they were and make the run that they did. What did you guys think of this LAT run and kind of where did it come from? What does the future look like? Can they keep this up? Was it a one-off? What's going on?
I think they answered my questions, James. Whenever we were talking about them in the reverse sweep prior, I said that they just didn't have a niche. They didn't look particularly good at anything, and then they showed up to this event and it was looking like more of the same when they lost. But then they went back to the drawing board. They made the losers bracket run. Mind you, it was damn near flawless. I think the only map they lost was to OpTic. And I started to put the pieces together just like they did. I think they just finally clicked. I think we were all waiting for this moment. We never said to blow it up. We never said any of that stuff because we knew that ultimately these guys, if they're going to make it work, it's going to be these four guys. And it finally did. I think they found their map set. I feel like they found their roles. They were playing so well as a team. I think they just caught fire at the right time. And I feel like usually when you have like a tournament like that where things just click, it usually starts to carry over, especially in these like high echelon teams. Because I don't know about you guys, but whenever I compete, or in your case, Pat, competed, whenever you go to LAN events, for some reason, I feel like you just learn so much. Like, you retain so much more of the stuff that you like learn in the match, whether it's against other teams or just like a way of playing. You end up like taking it home with you, and like you just improve as a player or as a team. And I think that's going to be the case for Thieves.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we had them getting like top 6, I believe, in our bracket, James. Top 6 to top 8. I think it's always been clear they're like a T4 to T8 team, and our biggest problem was like, can they, break into the top 4? For me, I've seen this a lot before, where like a good team can just get fire and kind of like almost relive that confidence that they know they have, especially they had in Vanguard. I'm still not sold. And the reason I'm going to say that is because I think they had an absolutely amazing tournament. They aside from the grand final, and even in the grand final, they beat basically everybody. Their map count was insane. They looked good at all 3 modes. But I want to make sure that this is a sustainable thing, and it wasn't just a one-off weekend, right? Like, this weekend, too, had some, like, crazy anomaly series. Like, we saw Saturday, for example, it had 5 3-0s, and it wasn't even like close 3-0s. It was like one team absolutely demolished the other team, both in the game score line, but also in kills. Like, Thieves also had an amazing slaying event. Like, we've always known Thieves to have great comms. We've known them to have great teamwork, but like this event, they came and they were frying every single one of them. Now, I don't think one of them had a bad match. And so where I do think they improved definitely from Major 1, I want to make sure that this is going to be a consistent thing for them, because otherwise I still have them at like that 4, 5, 6 range as a team. Because I could easily see them coming to Major 3, not having a good online split. And then, you know, maybe they don't win that first round, you know, bracket at Major 3 again, and then they don't have that hot loser run. So I think it's obviously an amazing run for them. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of by their performance whatsoever. They fried. They looked like a winning team. But I think we still need to see them come back home, be out of the LAN environment, and do it online again, just to show us that it wasn't kind of a one-off weekend for them.
I think for them, though, Pat, it's just going to be one of those things where they kind of regain their confidence, and they're like, oh, wow, we really can do this, and we're going to go home, and we're going to try to replicate that success. Whereas before, whenever they're, like, playing online, and, you know, they have that shitty Major 1, and they're playing in their online stage, and they get sick, and, well, Kenny got sick and all that stuff, I'm sure in their minds there was always doubt, where it's like, fuck, dude, like, we might not be as good anymore, like, we need to, like, either maybe make a change, or we have to like learn the game. Like, we're just not as good. But I think once like this team gets that like confidence under their belt, because I feel like they're just a confidence heavy team, bro. Like, every single personality on that team is very like outspoken. Sam is a very outspoken person. Drazah, Kenny, even Envoy at times. Like, they just all like have that like that energy where they just like, they're almost like, it's not like cocky, it's like confident. And I feel like they were doubting themselves at a point, and then they finally came to the event and they put on a show, and they're gonna go back home, and I feel like these guys are gonna be good. So that's just my take on it. But I mean, I was thoroughly impressed, dude. But on the topic that you were saying that Saturday, bro, all the teams that like went on like those winning sprees on Saturday, their stats are mega inflated, bro. We're seeing 1.6s, 1.7s. I'm like, bro, I didn't even know people could drop that kind of KD in this game, because this game is so like, I don't know, trade heavy.
One last thing about the Thieves, though, is because I wanted to touch on what you said. You said like they got their confidence back. I feel like that's really easy to do when you're on a winning streak like they were, right? Like, when you're just like back to back, you're on a roll. I mean, they went 15-1 map count in loser bracket. Like, once they won like the 3-0, maybe the next 3-0, like, that's what gives you that confidence. And my question for the Thieves is like, if they don't start with that kind of that steamroll effect, will they have that same confidence? That's my question. Will it carry over when they're out of the tournament environment?
Pat, we could ask the same thing about the New York subliners. Like, are we going to use the excuse that because they got in late and they couldn't get a warm-up scrim in, and they didn't get rolling, and they lost a close game 5 and they couldn't get it moving? Is that the excuse? And then they get the placing they got at the major, but they're the champions from the one before, right? So like, they had a drop off. So to me, it's like, dude, if you got a formula in the CDL that works, you retain that formula until the wheels fall off. If I'm Thieves and I win the world championship, I could get dead last for 3 majors in a row before I'm contemplating making a change because of what we did. I'd have to see improvement from a day-to-day basis, but I'm a really big believer in sticking it through with a team and always seeing it through the highs and the lows. I mean, you saw it with them last year. I can't emphasize it enough. The amount of changes they made in Cold War and where it got them compared to last year when they just made the one role swap and they really ironed it out with the 4 dudes they had. And I was very impressed with the Thieves this event. They looked like the world champions from last year, right? So you got a formula that works, Pat. Don't change the formula, man. You don't have to pack any punches. It's all good.
I agree with you. I don't think they need to make a roster change, Doug. My big question is like, will they be a top 2 team again next event? That's my question. Are they going to
subliners be one? Will Atlanta FaZe be one? Will
I don't know. I mean, we talked about New York.
They went dead last. They were top 2 last event. They got dead last. Like,
but the thing about the New York is New York were a surprise at Major 1, right? Like, as much as we can talk about they looked good online, like, this was a surprise team. Like, they came out. Priesta massively overperformed from what we were used to from Preston. Hydra and Kiz played synonymously amazing. I mean, this is kind of just, I mean, it's day to day, it's COD, right? But it's like, these are kind of these performances that everything has to go right type of situations. Like, it's the same thing with the rocker, right? Like, if we don't see Bance and Afro dropping 1.5s together and frying, they're horrible. Like, they're not that good of a team. So it's one of those things where it's like, I want to see them be able to replicate it. Because right now, In my opinion, there's only one team in the CDL that can replicate their performance event to event to event, and it's the Atlanta FaZe.
Yes, and I agree, Pat. That is 100% true. But even OpTic, they got dead last and they got fourth. They might get sixth, and they might get first.
They also made a roster change, and then you get a honeymoon phase. There's a lot of more factors that go into that as well.
I just think consistency in CDL to be a top 3 team in CDL year after year is, I don't want to call it impossible, but it's just unrealistic with the way that the league works. I
agree, and I don't expect any team outside of FaZe to be there. But my thing is, like, why does Seattle Surge go and get second and then get 12th? Like an embarrassing 12th. Like, they got smoked. And not only that, let's look at OpTic. OpTic got 16th last event and then got 4th here. Breach also got 16th and then got 5th, 6th. Like, these jumps are massive. Like, and so that's my question is, like,
happening, Pat, because the league is super competitive. Players play well and they're all good.
Here's the thing. So I do agree with you. There's a lot of competition. I think a lot of the teams you're pointing out with their performances are teams that have clear, actual, identifiable issues on their team. For example, Search and Destroy with, what is it called? The Seattle Surge. Like, that's not sustainable, right? Boston Breach, their game 5s, and then just in general,
ice in general.
just ice in general. Like, they just choke, right? And then you're talking about what other team was it? Rocker. Rocker even has identifiable issues with just starting off in slow in series. But when you're talking about a team like Thieves, Thieves don't have an identifiable issue. I feel like you look at their team from top to bottom, their roster's great, full of stars. Their communication is impeccable compared to most of the league. I think their issue is just they just learn slower, and they just like have to get that confidence under their belt where they're like, okay, we are those guys. And I feel like they're gonna be a top contender like this entire year at this point because they finally got their mojo back. Like, it's not just gonna go away again, in my opinion.
We thought that about New York after Major 1. We were like, this team's gross. These guys are gonna be a contender, and then they just disappeared on us at Major 2.
See, here's the thing with New York. So we're talking about like New York. Obviously, they took an early exit. They ended up, oddly enough, right? They lost to 2 of the teams that placed in the top 3. So I don't think New York necessarily fell off. And New York's also different though. New York is a new team this year. It's a completely four different guys. It's not the same with Thieves or FaZe. They've had the same roster for quite a while now, barring some changes, like a couple changes, like a handful of them. But what I'm saying is, for New York at least, I think they just ended up losing a heartbreaking Game 5 to Rocker, which obviously eventually placed top 3, and they were just a victim of that Saturday nonsense where they just ran into the Thieves, who eventually went on this like crazy map win spree. Obviously, it's hindsight, and in the moment we didn't know, but like, dude, those are 2 of the teams that placed in the top 3. I still think New York is a great team, and I think Kismet in general just played really poor this event on an individual level compared to like what he played in the first major, but I think the rest of his team, they played pretty good. I think they just ended up being victim of that Saturday nonsense that we had, and the Thieves caught fire. I still think New York is a great team. I don't know if I can consistently put them in that top 3 conversation. I mean, there's only 3 spots, and one of them is a guaranteed phase. So, I don't know. I still think New York, again, doesn't have an identifiable issue. I think they're overall really good at like every mode. Sure, they can improve in Search and Destroy, but they're not a team that is faltering in any sort of way to an insane degree like most other of these teams that you're naming are. I think
want to switch this convo really quick. I want to switch this convo really quick. And James, I'm gonna go back to your original point when you were asking about like, does the game affect how players view retirement? I think, and I've never really seen this before, this COD in particular, like, dude, you shouldn't be able to go to a tournament and get first or second and then end up dead last at the next one. This COD to me is extremely, extremely day-to-day. More than any COD I've ever seen, like, in my entire career. I've never seen a COD more day-to-day.
I don't know. We said the same thing about Vanguard.
I don't know how that's an argument. Like, no, it's insane.
We said the same thing about Vanguard, and then eventually...
Not to this extent.
Eventually a team at the end of the year perfected it. I don't think that's true.
Dude, this COD is so day-to-day.
I think there are a lot of variables in this Call of Duty, but there's still a way to make it systemic. Like, when we're talking about things on the flank, I'm literally telling you guys, like, how a team needs to play to try to come back into the game, and what a team needs to do to troll.
Making good plays is irrelevant though. That's not the point. Like this COD is just day to day. Like it is so, bro. No red dots. Oh my god, no red dots. We saw the FaZe versus the Thieves game at the very end when aBeZy didn't know where to look. Like obviously we knew in CODcaster.
But even then,
the fact that there's no red dots, like. To me, that basically
red dot cheese
forces
Pat.
I think it makes it more difficult. Sure, I think it makes it more difficult. Sure, but
it makes it more random. It doesn't make it difficult.
When you have a team, when you listen to a team like Thieves, their communication is always so clear, so accurate, and so concise that like, bro, you don't have a large, you don't have a degree of like. Just not being able to find people. Like they always they have the perfect communication. And I feel like that should be
Chris, but there's still moment to moment gameplay where you can't calm. Like
sure.
No matter who you are. Like I've been on multiple teams that had good comms.
I agree with you to a certain degree, but at the same time,
no red dots. It makes extremely inconsistent situations and it makes it random.
No, I'm going to say this too, Pat, just to add on to what you're saying. Like we have another talking point called Mack missile on this call that we have. And even that play from Mack, I felt bad. It worked out for Boston, so I was happy Boston got the win. But I felt so heartbroken for Mack because when you put in this much time to play, and I'm talking from a player perspective here, you really put your heart and your soul into this thing. And you're going into these series, especially in the league, where you're playing like one series, right? You're in the loser bracket because of online matches, which have a lot of variables in them, Pat. You have the no red dots, right? You have a lot of
bad
different
spawns,
factors.
glitches, bugs.
The loud equalization online too was a big deal.
And then you got LA Thieves who always seem to be bad online. I wonder why, because they're geographically located in California. And I understand you could do the pings and the servers and this and that. Look, it's just a geographic thing. I think that's a big reason why they've struggled online. But then like with the streaks, I mean, the streaks in this game are abysmal. There are ways with these streaks that I'm not even going to get into on this podcast, but that streak, the whole streaking, everything about streaks need to be reworked by these developers, man. That play from Mack should have never happened. That was not Seattle Surge losing the map. That was not Seattle Surge messing up. That was not Mack costing his team. That was this game and an issue with this game. I mean, there are so many things about this game that make it the most inconsistent COD of all time. I've seen it from a lot of different teams and challengers, Chris. I mean, Chris,
don't do it, Doug. Don't do it, Doug.
We could talk about it there with this league as well. It's the same thing with the pro league. I mean, every day someone's a god and someone's horrible, and then like
Chris, I was trying to throw you a bone. I was trying to throw Chris a bone. Chris went from winning the Challengers Cup online to getting top 48 here. If that doesn't scream inconsistency in the game, bro, I don't know what does.
That is a complete.
No, I don't want to make this about Chris getting roasted here, but I agree with that because Chris is good. The team was good. It's a good team, and they got T48. Make it make sense to me. It's the game, man. Chris. I know we've.
I will say, I asked Chris yesterday when I ran into him, and the first thing he said out of his mouth, because I said, "Oh, is it just this game?" And the first thing he said was, "It's not the game." So I mean,
I don't know. Maybe I just have.
Chris is a diehard COD lover, though.
Maybe I just have like this morphed way of thinking where I just can't simply put my excuse in the game because I'm a very analytical person. I feel like I can always pinpoint a moment where I feel like we should known what to do to succeed, and we just weren't doing the things that we need to do. But I mean, I do agree. There are things in this game that add a variable of randomness. But at the same time, like we're professional players and we've always learned how to minimize those things to a almost non-existent degree. Maybe in terms of just like talking about the game, sure, they exist, but in a match, like these things are going to happen. These things have the potential to happen, and you almost prepare for stuff like that to happen. As for the streaks, though, I don't think we should be playing with them. I know people like the essence of streaks and wow, exciting, you can missile, blow up. No. Bro, there shouldn't be snowball mechanics in the game. That's essentially what a streak is. It's like you're already farming the fucking person in the team, like, and you get a streak and you're going to drop it on their foreheads and make the situation even worse for them. Streaks are horrible. but also I think they're very glitchy in this game. I think the whole like trophy cheese and all that stuff, and the fact that even trophies blow them up shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's just a different conversation. But I mean, I do feel for the Seattle Surge and for the way they lost. I know some people are still debating whether the streak landed on the roof and how the hell did it kill Lamar?
Yeah.
How did it kill Mack? How did it not kill one of those guys? But I mean, at the end of the day, it's the game we play. It kind of sucks, but
yeah,
I mean,
and while those are I guess it's somewhat uncontrollables for everybody that's playing because it's the game right now. But I do kind of want to ask you guys, like this, we've touched on it before in the past, but this game is a 2-year cycle, and we're getting all these inconsistent results, and it has been a weird beginning for the first 2 majors. Do you guys see the inconsistency improving and kind of it becoming better, or do you think it's going to be batshit crazy for the next 18 months?
I think they're going to make improvements to multiplayer that essentially the general public would want, but the general public isn't going to be a group of people that are going to want to hyper analyze the way streaks work and be like, oh, you need to fix this. And I say we as the pro community, I don't think any of the pro community have a contact with Infinity Ward where they can like actually point out like game breaking shit and like little inconsistencies and things and like ways of like, oh, this should work this way. It shouldn't work this way. Can you please change it? I don't even think we have a point of contact with Infinity Ward. So I don't see any of it changing to a huge degree. The things that are going to get changed in this game are simply going to be obviously the content, right? We're going to get maps and all that stuff. And then probably just gun balancing stuff, but it's not going to be balanced around us. So I don't think any of it.
And the maps are a question mark too, right? Like the what kind of maps we get. Because if we don't get good maps, then to your question, James, like we're still stuck on the maps that it currently in. Like, and I think to be honest, that is the worst case scenario. Like getting stuck on the maps is the worst case scenario. And I also think year 2 has to introduce a new game mode. I don't think we can play control year 2. I think if we do, it'll be horrible.
I don't think we should play control. I think we should just play hardpoint search. And we should broaden the hardpoint S&D map pool.
I don't think you should do that just because you're going into year 2. You need something new and exciting. And if we just introduce the same mode in the same form or a different the same mode in a different way in the same format, it's not going to help anything. I think they need to introduce a new game mode, whether they're making a new mode, which I assume they're making modes for year 2 since it is a 2-year cycle, or just use ones that we know we've had in the past, like domination or something like that. Just because I don't know who would argue that Dom is worse than control. Control is the worst competitive game mode in 4v4 with no specialists that I've ever seen. It's miserable.
Blitz.
Yeah, they can do blitz.
No,
sure. Any game mode.
Blitz is the worst, Pat. Blitz is the worst. Is what I'm saying.
I genuinely think competitively, control is the worst game mode in competitive COD.
Listen, bro, I'm gonna be honest.
Blitz, Pat. Worse than Blitz.
No, I'm gonna be honest.
I think control is the worst.
This conversation is faded. They need to get rid of control. Period. We haven't had a good game mode since Uplink and old school CTF, and the only reason old school CTF worked was because of the maps. And I don't think we're ever going to get lucky enough to have good CTF maps, right? In a long time. I think we go
Fortress
to Hardpoint.
CTF could be fire. Fortress CTF could actually be fire.
I think Hardpoint. No, but CTF doesn't work with everyone. No one having dead silence. That game would be the no dead silence. CTF,
too big.
No dead silence CTF would be horrible. But listen, Hardpoint S&D only, and then for year 2,
Chris, I just explained that you can't do that. You cannot do that in a year 2. In year 2, you can't do that. It will be incredibly boring. It will be incredibly boring.
Just get new maps. We would have to have a completely new map.
It would still be incredibly boring, bro. It's a year 2. You have to do something. There has to be something done that is something exciting to care about watching competitive COD again for another year.
What do you mean? We get completely new map set, new guns are being introduced with every season and every game.
Maps are such a stretch. Guns probably aren't even going to be allowed. You have to have a new game mode. Something has to be new and exciting.
Am I crazy though? But because like I feel like control wasn't this boring in like Black Ops 4.
5v5 and specialists. That's the only reason it wasn't. Because you had specialists like the Grav Slam guy. You had stim. You had abilities to break hill. Now it's just boring. 4v4 standard, boring.
You had so many things that promoted aggression back in the day. Now you don't. Like everything in this game promotes passive gameplay. You can sound horde people really easily. Whenever you get shot, you're healing for 3 years. And if you take any sort of damage, even from a stun, which I don't think stuns should do damage, you stop your healing, so you have to wait even longer to re-challenge. Like, there's just nothing in this game that promotes aggression. I think that's a big complaint
glad you brought
within the
that up,
Warzone
Chris.
community. Why?
Tacticals don't do damage next Defiant.
I hate this guy, dude. I actually hate this guy.
But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off your point.
I mean,
but
you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We've talked about the game enough. I feel like we always talk. We
Yeah,
always
you know
bring
what
something up
does
about
do
the game.
damage? You know what does do damage though, and what hurts the soul?
What's
OpTic
that?
Gaming choking late in the tournament.
that doesn't do
Not-
any
not
damage to me,
Pats.
James.
Not
That doesn't
Pascal.
do any damage to me. I can see that
So
coming from a mile
OpTic,
away.
let's talk about OpTic. They had what looked to be a pretty good run going. The team looked solid. Dashy had an incredible event. A lot of those guys played well, but they ran into some problems today and they couldn't get over it. What happened?
Nah,
Look,
bro.
I want to start on this, man, because I gotta say about Dashy first of all. Jesus Christ, dude. Look, I've teamed with Dashy. Jesus Christ. Go back on YouTube and type in Rise Nation versus Complexity World War II when we 3-0'd the team that was the best in the league. And look at what Dashy did in the series. The guy was doing that this entire event. He definitely took what Seth said to heart in his retirement video. He wants to be that guy that's stepping up for the team. He was on a mission.
He might have been the best player in the venue.
I've seen
the
the
whole
best of
weekend.
Brandon. I've seen the best of Brandon in Rise Nation in that series when I teamed with him years ago. This is the best Brandon I've seen. Even though they got fourth, and I'm really big on team before player, Brandon was amazing. He was amazing this event. I mean, and his team was great too. I think we're all going to talk about the same thing on Bogger Control with Shotzzy hitting top green and flank, and then they didn't get the defense and they lose, and that's why they lost the series. That team is good. This OpTic team isn't going to go anywhere, man. They're going to keep on improving. I saw even with Shotzzy, he's in the same hotel too. I saw him after, and you can see it in his face, like he was just replaying that scenario a million times over in his head. Why'd I hit it? I thought they were just gonna flood out arch. Why did the guy go green? Why did I just decide to why didn't I just hold it? I should have just held it. Why didn't I hold it? I didn't want to get stunned. So if I run it, if I get stunned, I'm sure that's how his brain was seeing it. And that's really
Hindsight's crazy.
like the smallest. Yeah, that's how it is, Pat. Right?
That's
what
not
we
even
do.
hindsight, bro. That is faded sight, dude. Like, listen, I think me and Pat have quite opposite takes of you. I think OpTic is a great team, but I think what's going to prevent them from reaching a consistent level, at least in the championship caliber level, is simply going to be their decision making and respawn. I feel like these guys live and die. This is what Pat said on the flank. He says they live and die by the gunny, and to a degree, I think that's true. These guys thrive whenever they're in the aggressive part. I feel like we said that on the flank when they were just only winning offenses on control. I think these guys just need to slow it down. And I don't know if or when they're going to be able to do that. But for example, in that play that you're talking about, all shots he could have done a number of things. He could have put his controller down and basically sat in a corner and they would have won the map. But he just, I don't know what went through his head and why he made
think
the
about
play,
it.
But
Movement
it just blew
king.
my mind.
Movement king. He has to be moving, bro. And I think that's their problem. This whole team's problem is they're nonstop moving. Like I don't understand too, because it's like it's one of those things where it's like you're so good at doing all the hard plays, like all the fucking tough things to do. Same with the shots, and it's just like, why can you not do the simple thing? Like the one routine. Hold a heady, hold an L trigger, don't move, let somebody run into you. It's the simple routine play. I don't ever see them do it. They always are flashy with how they play, and they're always go, 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 go. And I think
I wouldn't say all of them are. I think.
Sorry. Shotzzy, Hook, that's how those guys play.
Yeah.
And I think, and the problem is they're their main subs, right? Like when Seth was on this team, it was a little bit different because we know how Seth plays. Seth has historically been a super slow player from a POV playstyle perspective. But I just think I don't know if that's something that can be fixed. And the reason I say that is because I've seen so many COD players over the years that have been like just completely one gear, right? They only know how to play at fifth gear. They don't know how to play in second or first. Like they only go. And when in moments like that, for your example, when Doug and Shotzzy was saying like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? It's just one of those things that's ingrained in certain players that when they're in situations like that, they feel that they have to make the play. They have to do something. And it's like, I don't know if that's can be fixed. That's just something that's like ingrained in you as in a play style.
And it's so weird because I think it always comes down to the game, because I feel like plays like that in a more forgiving game, for example, Black Ops 4, where you can take damage and rework your situation, are way less impactful. But in games like this, like people overcomplicate it. I was a big critic about OpTic's hardpoint because I felt like whenever they would rotate and be in a situation to hold, rather than them just sitting in the most basic of setups and trusting their teammates to hold their irons, they know where they're coming from. They would always like want to push out and get these weird off angles and do all these creative, I'll put it lightly, creative things to try to catch other teams off guard. When in reality, they don't need to do that. That creative mindset, let it take over when you are after like an initial push, right? When you have the other team pushed out and they're funneled and you know the timings you're going to get based on the spawn they get. But they do it too often on rotation. And I've always said it, the rotation time is not only the most important time of a hard point, but it's the most dangerous time. Because if you put yourself in a position where you want to be creative and you fuck up or you get isolated, you throw the entire rotation away for your team. And that's something that OpTic is prone to. And I know people are going to sit here and because I know some of the people that are Green Wall fans, I feel like they're kind of delusional to a point. Some of them are just kind of toxic because they just make excuses for their team. When it's funny because their team, their coaches, JP, for example, will sit there and tell us, yeah, we need to do this. We're like essentially proving us right. But they'll sit there and make excuses for him like, oh, dude, they've only been a team for a little bit. Oh, they're 5-1 in the league. Like, we are pointing out these issues because it's clear. It's literally why they keep losing series. And it was why they eventually got knocked out of the major. I think these guys just need to slow it down. I don't, like you said, Pat, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Also, I think someone that needs to step up and start playing better and more consistent if they're going to want to hang with the top dogs for like the likes of FaZe is going to be Ender. I think Illy online in their group stage matches, I think he had a massive performance. He was frying. He was frying when he played their online matches, and he was a big catalyst as why they were able to even get that first seed. But online, I think he just kind of disappointed. He wasn't playing statistically that great. His S&D was still pretty good, but even in S&D, there was times where I feel like he didn't know when to put away the sniper, and he was just kind of like leaving his teammates out to dry, and it was making some of these series and some of these maps a lot more difficult. But yeah, I think overall for this team, I'm happy that they placed well, finally, because obviously OpTic making it deep in a tournament is always a good thing. But at the same time, if these guys want to make finals, which I want them to make finals, I'm not a hater. I want them to make finals. When they make finals, it's good for everybody. It's good viewership. Everyone's happy. It's a fucking grand old time. But if they want to make that finals consistently, or even make it into the conversation, these guys gotta clean it up because they cannot rely on this one game mode play style with their S&D. They gotta stop throwing because, quite frankly,
I trust OpTic.
That's what they do. They throw.
I think that they're going to be just fine. I think that they played a really hot LAT, and Shotzzy probably made one of the dumbest mistakes he's made. Like, I think everyone could, like, I think if I'm Ant, he's probably going to look back and say, damn, that's probably one of the dumbest mistakes I made ever. Like, it was such an obvious, easy, free win, right? And the whole series is different if he doesn't make the dumbest mistake. Like, if you're going to tell me a player like Shotzzy, right, the future of COD, like, amazing person, amazing player, is going to make that stupid of a mistake to lose against a hot team that's a world championship team and we're getting fourth. It's like, it is what it is, dude. Like, you live and you die with it because he's your guy. You know, that's your guy. You trust him.
Maybe not to that degree, but like I've watched him in particular, and I think he's an incredible player. I've watched him in particular a lot over the last couple over the last stage and the last couple of his matches where like it's just he's doing too much. He just needs to stop. He's doing way too much. And at the same time, people be like, oh, it's hindsight that you didn't see that working. No, it's not. Listen, sometimes that creative stuff, it's going to work. It's going to catch people off guard. But when you play a team that's very thorough in the way they clear stuff out, and they're obviously looking out for certain things like this, it's not going to work as much as you think. It's going to work against the shitter teams, the really bad teams that obviously don't really know how to play well, and you're just going to catch them off guard.
There's a lot of those, to be fair.
And you're going to look like a god, but then when you play a team that, like, for example, LA Thieves is very meticulous and doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and capitalizes on people's mistakes really well, it's going to be a problem. So they need to fix it. He needs to go back into the way that he plays and kind of rethink it to a degree. I don't think he's, bad. So he just needs to clean it up.
He's not bad. He's not a bad player. Shotzzy is an incredible player. It's just one of those things where it's like doing that flashy stuff just doesn't win you games sometimes. And like that's why the whole live and die by the gunny and the chow, like that's just, if he wins the fight, he wins the game. And if he takes a bad fight and he doesn't win it, then it's very punishing. And so it's not by any means he's a bad player. He's always going to lead his team in a statistical category, most engagements, tons of damage, tons of kills. It's just you need to be able to, in the moment, in the actual moment of the game, tell yourself what the best play is and evaluate that on a play-to-play basis and make the right play. And I don't think he does that. I think he makes I'm gonna chow this guy because I know I'm better than him play. And
it's not
when you do that and you get checked, you lose.
It's not even that, like to that degree, Pat. I think it's more so he needs to go back and reevaluate the way he plays to a degree of like, is this necessary? Like when I go and do this, is this necessary? Is this going to be
like
my
all
win
his
condition?
cool little jump spots?
Yeah, like is this going to be necessary for me to win the game? Do I need to do this, or can I just take a safer approach where I can use my teammates and make sure that I'm making a more like a percentage-wise play, like a better percentage-wise play. I don't know. Either way, fourth, not bad.
That's
arguably should have made third at least.
Saying, is this really necessary? Shots, if you're watching this right now, like what was just said, is this really necessary? Take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but add it to the game. Like, do all the movement stuff and do all the cool stuff and then tune it down slightly, right? Like that's really the solution, I feel. So I think
it's mainly just in the clutch moments, Doug. That's really all it is.
In the moments,
in the closeout moments, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I mean, as we've touched on these top teams, unfortunately, teams did not place that well, and I think we're gonna have a little bit of a roster mania, maybe, hopefully. Who knows?
Hope
coming
so,
up,
James. I hope so, James. I'm about to send out. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send out the blow it up merch that I had, and by the way, check my pinned tweet. I'm gonna send it out to all the teams. I'm gonna get their PO boxes and I'm gonna send it to them to kind of just push them along a little bit because I do think there's like 5 teams that need to blow it up.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you're good.
I was gonna say I think there's gonna be a couple teams that look to make roster changes. I got my eyes on Florida as one of those teams that can definitely make some changes. Vegas maybe could make some changes. I still think they're a pretty good, serviceable dark horse team. I think they just started in losers bracket. And they didn't have that cushion that they had at Major 1 with the whole Pro-Am. But then there's also like Seattle. Like I think there's just quite a few teams that can definitely make changes, and also
London.
With the challengers. Oh yeah, London, of course. I mean, dude, I always forget about that team just because, bro, I don't see them play. Like they just don't play in the tournaments. It feels like
they just suck straight up.
Bro, there's all these teams that can make changes, and I think a couple of those teams, especially on the lower end, probably aren't going to be able to make valuable trades. So they're going to be looking at challengers, man. And I think with challengers happening this weekend, I think, and the elites, I think there's a lot of good players out there that some of these teams, could take advantage of and try to change up their roster around. But yeah, Rostermania is gonna be crazy.
Can we give a shout out to Dan Ghosty? Can we give a shout out to my former teammate Dan? I probably can call Dan my son, and he just won the MVP of Challengers this weekend with Tyler Fellow, Yuli, and Turiel. Those are some of my really good friends in Challengers, and I'm really happy to see Dan getting some success. I really hope that a league team can pick him up, because for us, it was always like we felt he just needed to grow up a little bit, and Tyler has been a great mentor to Dan from what I've seen, and from what I hear, and I'm very close to those guys. This guy's been playing his best COD, like even better COD than he played when he was here with us, and I'm just very proud to see what he's developing into, and I think Dan can most definitely help a lot of these league teams. So they won the Challenger event down here. I know our last talking point is Challengers Talk with me and Chris. And Chris, I want to get your take on Challengers too. I thought it was a great event. Obviously, it was freezing, right? Absolutely freezing. I think that's the most important thing we should note. Like, it was the coldest weather I think it might have been one of the coldest days in Boston. It was that cold those last 2 days, but
Yeah.
I thought the challenger event was ran really well. For us personally, we underperformed. It's not something we're happy about, but obviously there's a lot of things moving around behind the scenes right now, a lot of changes being made everywhere. So I just hope that Dan is going to be able to get his shot because I think it's definitely his time to deserve it, Chris.
I think the Challengers event. Sorry, my bad, James.
No, you're good.
I think the
I
Challengers
was
event,
just gonna say. Oh, you're good. I was just gonna say I would love for you guys to like even touch on a couple Challengers players this weekend that maybe people like that don't follow Challengers very much might see getting flirts in the pro league. Maybe keep an eye out. Maybe a little sneak peek from the both of you. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I got this. But yeah, with Challengers, I think the event was ran great for what they were trying to do. My only complaint was the venue. The venue, ideally, it was cool. The idea of it. We were actually in like the how do you know, like the boxes of like, yeah, we were in like the suites of like where people would go and watch the Boston Red Sox play, which was cool. However, I don't understand what was going on or why the fucking room was so cold. I kid you not, James. In that room, it was like 30 degrees, like 30, 50 degrees in the room while we were playing. People were, if you watched the Challenger stream, people were playing, or you watched any of like the shit talk clips that were on Twitter, people were actually playing in their coats because it was that cold. It was absurd. I don't know if there was no heating. I don't know if it was because we were right by like the doorways that would like lead you outside to like the standings or the stands. Sorry, I don't understand what it was. I know we got kind of unlucky with the whole weather and stuff like that, so I'm not going to blame them completely for it. But yeah, that was kind of abysmal conditions. But other than that, dude, the tournament was run smoothly. Everything was going on time or quicker than expected. In comparison to like the Pro-Am one where all the matches were running late, things were getting postponed to the next day. Super smooth. Boston and Esports Engine, all those guys, they definitely killed it. However, in terms of the actual players and the people that I definitely want to look out for, and I think a lot of these pro teams could use Dan Ghosty, number one at the top of our list. I think he's very reminiscent of Scrappy, maybe not in terms of shit talk, but I think in terms of the performances, he's been able to string along this year on an individual level from the elite, from the actual major. This guy is putting up the numbers, literally hard carry. I don't think he's the sole reason why their team won, but dude, he was frying all weekend. He fried the entire elite, number one stats out of everyone. He's also an AR player, so if any of these league teams are looking for a Slayer, definitely look out for him. Second, I'm going to give it to Fame, man. Fame, the Rocker Academy. He's actually the substitute for Rocker, so getting him might be a little bit more difficult, but Fame looked phenomenal. He was obviously playing really well for his team. They ended up placing second. And yeah, I think for me, those two guys in specific have a bright future ahead of them. I think teams would be dumb not to look their way and try to, find a way to get them on their roster and start developing this talent. Because if you don't do it now, some other team's going to do it down the line and you're going to regret it. I'm telling you now.
Very well said, Chris. And I want to say one more thing too, because Pat, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
I do want to say one more thing too, Chris. I agree with everything that you're saying, and I definitely think that these league teams need to be looking more into challengers because, man, I'm telling you, Dan Ghosty last year, I saw this kid. He was the guy who took my spot on my first challenger team last year. He was running a different role. He was not running I saw it with my eye, and I'm like, yes. I was so confident in him where I spent an hour with his foster family on a FaceTime to convince him to live with me. I got top 48 with him on LAN. This guy who's literally probably the best player in challengers right now. We got top 48 together on LAN. You guys could say I costed him, whatever you want. I hate this narrative. It's bullshit, but whatever. You could say Dan will tell you what he wants to tell you. He's not going to say that, but look, I got top 48 with Dan. I looked at him in his soul, and I'm like, Dan, you're going to be in the league. We're going to do really freaking well. We're going to turn this whole thing around starting next event, and I don't think this changes anything about how I feel about you as a player. And he didn't play his greatest. He didn't play bad either, but he looked at me with this feeling of he wanted this approval. He wanted this approval so bad that he's been looking for, and he's been around for so long. So he's been around for so long and no one knows about him. He's been sitting there this whole time. He's going to college. There's so many. I'm not saying everyone's going to be a Dan Ghosty out there that's next up, but there's a lot of talent out there, man. League teams, please look at these guys in challengers, dude. They're better, if not better than your starters. They will be better than your starters. I promise you. I've been in this challenger thing for a year and a half now. I know. Believe me, man. These guys are good. You got to give them a chance.
The one thing I wanted to say was, I know we can't control the weather, but I do think there could be a little better planning ahead. I don't think we should go to the Northeast in February. I think, it's kind of the same with like going to Minnesota in January. That's what we did for CDL launch weekend. I think that can be planned for a little better based on where some of these cities are and when we're slotting them out in these schedules. But yeah, the only thing I wanted to ask you both actually was how you both did. I know you both competed at Challengers. I didn't see the final placings. I wanted to kind of get an update from you guys on how you both did with your respective teams.
You want to go first, Chris?
No.
I'll go first. So yeah, our team, we played Cruz's team. We went game 5, round 11 for top 12 winners. We had a number advantage of 4v3 on defense on hotel. I pushed out the shop side of the map and cut the entire team. And then Dak made a play on our team, got a kill, got another kill, and then I'm in a 1v2 and we lose 6-5. It was due. Our ice had to have ran out because we have just been, Pat, you know those events where you just win every S&D, you win all the 6-5s? My team's been doing this for a year, dude. It was about time that we finally lost one, and then we just couldn't get momentum in losers, and everything just kind of went to crap. And we
What'd you end up placing?
Top 16. Exact same as Raleigh.
What about you, Chris?
I didn't play.
I swear I saw you check in on the first day and you were playing.
No, I didn't play.
Didn't you just win the last cup, I thought?
Yeah, but something happened and we couldn't play at the event, so I just came to do the flank and the reverse.
Weather delay, right, Chris? There was something with like the plane, and then
there was a weather delay, so
like 8 hours. They had to go home.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay, so Chris didn't play, guys, but his team actually ended up getting top 48, I believe.
Yeah, there was a weather delay, and whenever we showed up, we didn't have any players, so Esports Engine decided to give us some AI clones of us, and unfortunately there was like a bug in their like AI system, and I think those clones massively underperformed, and yeah, it was very weird. I don't know. I was on the couch all day for the flank, so it definitely wasn't me.
I just wanted to get an update from you guys. No worries.
Yeah, of course.
Oh man,
fuck off.
I love it.
Fuck off, dude.
Anyways. Any other topics that we missed? I'm trying to think if there's any other main storylines.
Honestly, I think this went very smooth. I was really happy with everything that we
I think
just
that's
said.
about it. I think that we just about covered everything. I think this is kind of what we expected LA Thieves to look like at Rally and kind of straight off the rip coming off a world championship win.
I gotta correct you because Doug did the same thing. It's Raleigh.
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 English,
not Rally.
English class. A late night English class with Pat.
It's because I'm from there.
Okay.
Charcuterie, who cares?
Yeah, anyways. Guys, remember last chance for the H jersey. I know Parasite really wants it. I know he would sub. I know Doug really wants it. He's probably subbed too. Make sure you're subbed. Let's get 1,000 subs. And so we can get those jerseys dished out to you guys. Thank you. Again, Doug's back. Doug, any final words for the people? They've been missing you.
I missed you guys so much. I love doing the podcast. It's extremely hard to do these when I'm competing and I have to watch all the matches in the league, focus on my team winning the event, do the podcast at night. But I love making time for it. I love the company. I love James. I love Pat. I love Chris. And I just love working with everyone here. So talking Call of Duty, I could do this all day. So I'm really happy I'm here. And I can't wait for all the next podcasts. I know we're going to do one for every major. So you guys will see me again. I'll be there for Major
a few
3.
weeks, actually. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's quick. It's a quick turnaround. And yeah, I think that wraps it up. Make sure you guys like the video. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Reverse Sweep. We'll be back for the next qualifier. Guys, have a great week. Happy Monday. Subscribe. Listen to Pat.
I laid the jersey out for you. Just go ahead and subscribe. It's waiting for you guys to give it away.
He has it laying over the check. His massive pile of checks.